Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Coaching Cafe series for 2023. My name's Natalie Ashdown from Open Door Coaching, and I am delighted to have joined us again for this series, our resident HR specialist, Paula Jones-Hunt. Welcome to the line.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. I'm excited to be back again this year.
Yeah, I can't believe it. It just seems like just yesterday that we actually finished with our series for 2022, and now we're clicking over for 2023, starting our series this year with talking about trends. And I love the talking about trends because this is our opportunity to predict what we think might be happening in coaching and in the workplace this year. And then, of course, at the end of the year, we get to look back and go, how did we go with our predictions? So there's a lot of people on the line, and we are really keen to hear your thoughts. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians on the lands on which we're all meeting today, and their continuing connection to the land, the waters, and the communities of Australia. We pay our respects to them and to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And I extend that welcome to all our international guests and the traditional owners of the international lands that we're meeting on today as well. So here we are, our agenda. We're really talking about trends in coaching for 2023 and how to take a coaching approach to those trends. For those of you that are new to the Coaching Cafe, you know that we're all about creating a community. We're about creating shared learning experiences. We come together every Friday at this time to create that learning experience and to have thought-provoking conversations. Of course, you might be listening to this on your favorite streaming service, and so we are delighted to have you listening to us as well as we have this discussion. And hopefully, whilst you're out walking or running or in the car or wherever you're listening, you'll be able to engage in our thought-provoking conversations as well. Of course, if you are a regular on the Coaching Cafe or you're a regular listener on our streaming services, podcasts, wonderful, welcome back. It's great to have the vibe that's created when we all come together. Great to see everyone and to have you all participating. So thank you for joining us. Highlight of our week, actually. And of course, if you're here to collect your ICSCCE, they are available at the end of the session if you are listening live. So you can take a screenshot of those. Okay, there's our welcome and our warm-up. Let's get into it, Paula. So the first trend I wanted to talk about that we are seeing, it's all over the news, the trend around inflation and rising interest rates. And I just did a quick, search this morning to say what's the news, and it's all over the news. Today, AMP Chief Economist Shane Oliver has estimated that 1 million households will have to cut spending significantly. There's stress about the cost of living being at a 4.5 year high, according to the NAB, and the headlines screaming around millions of households vulnerable to rising interest rates and cuts could cause a recession. So that's just the headlines and what's been thrown at us every single day at the moment. And it's real for people. And the trend that we're going to suggest here is that this is going to start coming out in our coaching, and it's going to start showing up in the workplace as people respond to those stresses. Some people will respond, others are sitting back going, I'm okay, I've fixed my rates in, I'm pretty good. Paula, what do you think about this trend that we're going to be seeing over the year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big one. And that even I fixed my rates. I think I read there was some comment from someone on the radio recently that said there's 800,000 people who had their rates fixed 2 years ago. I think it was when it was 2.something%. And they're going to come out of that fixed period, and there's going to be a significant impact because the interest rates have risen by 2.85%, which is a lot. And if you think about an average mortgage of $800,000, I mean, it's high, but they're existing out there. That's a lot of money for people to now have to figure out how they restructure finances. And in connection with that, when COVID hit, lots of wages got frozen. There were no pay increases, and even after we've been coming through COVID, those pay increases aren't what they used to be. So what we're seeing is people's pays haven't necessarily kept up. And the impact of mortgages means that lots of people are going to have less income, less money, because their money doesn't go as far. And we know that impacts people from family relationships. There's impacts on family relationships, how they feel about themselves, coming into work, and from a coaching perspective, we're going to hear a lot about that from people, because it's going to, when we think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's on, layer number 2. And if it's not being met, or there's changes and it's impacting, it has an impact on how everyone, from an engagement perspective, and how people are feeling about themselves.
Yes, I agree with you. In fact, I saw a quote that said 1 in 4 Australian mortgages were fixed. And so 1 in 4 Australian mortgages, people are coming off those fixed rates sometime this year as well. And of course, for those of you that can see, we have a picture there of the Reserve Bank Governor, Philip Lowe. And I feel a bit of compassion for him, actually, because he would be getting an enormous amount of emails and hate mail and all sorts of things going on at the same time that he's trying to do his job, which I think a lot of people perhaps don't understand. So not defending him or his job or anything like that, but just knowing that he's the face of this at the moment as well. So it's interesting to me. For me, I've got this picture of the elephant, kind of in the background. The elephant in the room is perhaps that that this might be an underlining theme in our coaching, and it's an opportunity for compassion, it's an opportunity for listening, it's an opportunity for planning, and it also might be an opportunity for a referral to a financial counsellor as well. So there's a lot that we can actually do in our coaching, in our workplaces, if these if people are being vulnerable or are feeling the effects. And there's great, so there's lots of chat coming in now, which is really wonderful as well. Lisa says, hi Lisa, welcome back. It's a great opportunity, and an opportunity to see how we can support people, help our teams from a wellbeing strategy. So yes, whilst we don't want this to be all doom, and we don't actually want this to be all doom and gloom, it's about the reality, and then how can we respond as coaches, as leaders, as you've said there, Lisa, responding in a supportive way where we help our teams with a wellbeing strategy. Nathan, welcome back as well. Jumping in, says, reminiscent of what occurred in the US real estate market prior to the Great Recession, a huge impact on employee mindset engagement at the time. So yes, if we see this happening, then I think as coaches, we are in a really good position actually to demonstrate that compassion, the listening, help people plan around some of these challenges that they're going to face, and of course, referrals where they're needed. Paula, did you want to jump in on that one as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and in organisations, it's about having it in the back of your mind when you've got someone who's doing or behaving slightly different than what they would normally do, and checking in with that, and being able to being able to be compassionate and listen and help, rather than not, what the opposite looks like. Because if people are feeling, we used to have that old adage that you have to leave your personal life at home when you walk through the door of somewhere, which is crazy because we're not two distinct people. And so it's about knowing that people are going to be feeling this way, and as a manager, as an internal coach, how do you work with that, and how are you making sure that you're helping that person and supporting them through what they're needing to do?
Yes, and I definitely agree with you there. And as Lisa said, it's about the wellbeing strategy as well. I found this the elephant in the room. For those of you that are listening, it's like an elephant kind of in the dark, like it's in the shadows. But it feels to me like this kind of topic is real at home, and then it's going to be in the shadows at work. Feel free to jump in, everyone, and tell us what you're thinking about this as we go along as well. And sorry, let me just also re-clarify my comments on the Reserve Bank Governor. I think there's compassion that we can express for everyone because everyone will be going through different things. I just want to point out that he's probably the most hated man in Australia right now, and that would be tough for anyone who's trying to do a job as they go along. So let's talk about the next trend. This really featured. I've been, and I know you've done a lot of research here, Paula, around this trend and the need for wellbeing, and it featured very heavily in the recent magazines that I've been reading, the industry magazines as well. This is a trend around burnout and employee wellbeing. So burnout being a very big concern. In the early coaching that I've done this year, burnout has been the topic. And how do I prevent burnout this year? How do I focus on my own well-being this year? And I've talked to a number of people, Lisa can jump in here as well, around putting those strategies in place that we need in order to help people in this regard. So the statistics around 62% of Australian employees suggest that they're experiencing burnout. Australian workers suffered a higher level of burnout at work compared to anywhere else in the world. Paula, you've found statistics around 62% of the Australian employees experiencing burnout compared to a global average of 48%. And you've given us some research here around 66% of Australian managers reporting burnout as opposed to 53% globally. So Paula, with your HR background, and I know there's a lot of HR managers on the line and HR coaches on the line, what do you think when you see those kind of statistics?
Yeah, and in some of the research that I did, I think it's still a compounding effect of COVID. So we were working hard before COVID. So it's not that we weren't working hard before, we were, but when COVID hit, there were lots of changes, and then in lots of industries, it's hard to recruit people. So when you lose someone, what happens? People have to pick it up, and so if your frontline staff are working harder, then they are experiencing burnout, and then it goes to the manager level. And managing the manager role is a really tough gig in an organization, because in lots of times they don't have any control over decision making at the top level, and then they have to roll it through to employees who may not like what's coming down. So it's a really tough space, and then they have to support and guide and manage the people who are reporting to them. So from that perspective, there's a lot in here around making sure, I think one of the trends for this year is making sure that our middle management level are really being considered in employee well-being and looking at workload. And I think we're going to have to balance out some of that workload, because we're still struggling in some industries to get people into roles, and it just flows on that effect as it moves up.
Yes, and people are agreeing with you, Paula. They've said here, I totally agree with you, Paula. Everyone was already working really hard, and then the world turned upside down, personally and professionally, which really pushed some people over the edge. And I get this sense actually that we're coming back in 2023. 62% of Australian employees still experiencing burnout. So we've had our summer break for those international people that are listening. And we haven't really come back from the break refreshed. So that, I think, is going to start playing out. And that's a great opportunity for coaching. As I said, in my early executive coaching sessions I've done already this year, it's been the number one. I mean, we're saying the trend number 2, but the number 1 conversation, if that makes sense. And I think that there's a lot that we can, there's many ways that we can respond. I love Glenn Close's quote, which is, what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, more unashamed conversations. From a coaching point of view, when it comes to burnout and engaging employee well-being, there's a very strong opportunity to be prioritizing me time. Now, when I wrote prioritizing me time, I'm not sure what you thought, Paula, but I'm like, oh yeah, prioritize me time. Easier said than done. But I know that all the coaches at Open Door, for example, a lot of our colleagues came back going, we need to prioritize me time, that time for ourselves. And it translates into boundaries and saying no. So a lot of the coaching I've been doing so far is, what are the boundaries and what am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to?
Yeah, I also think it's about being really specific about what that me time is, and really analysing what's impacting you at this point in time. And I'm happy to share that at the end of last year, I really looked at it and said, I'm not sleeping very well. Like, I'm going to bed on time, but I'm waking up not feeling refreshed from my sleep. And what I decided to do is to add in 10 minutes of sleep meditation before I go to sleep. And the difference is amazing. And all it was 10 minutes before I went to sleep to make sure that I'd stopped thinking about all of those things. So in that prioritizing me time, it's about really being focused and making sure that what you're doing in that me time is going to have an impact.
Oh, 100%. I am a massive advocate for meditation and a lot of the executive coaching I'm doing. It's something that we talk about. How can we build meditation or mindfulness practices into our day-to-day practice? And there's a lot of research that says that meditation and mindfulness practices have a huge impact on our positive mental health over time. So yes, I think in our coaching, we're going to see a lot of this boundaries saying no coming up. We're seeing it already. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of mental health first aid practitioners on the line. So that conversation about mental health, checking in with people, are they okay? And I like your specific questions there, saying, how's your sleep going? Are you sleeping through the night? Like checking in specifically about, are they nourishing themselves? Are they sleeping? And of course, looking out for our youth. So I have this very strong feeling, it's my gut, it's my intuition, it's probably backed up with research somewhere, that our youth are still recovering from COVID and finding out where they're still recovering from COVID. They're still trying to work out who they are, where they are, and what life looks like. And it's having an impact on anxiety and depression in our youth. So something we really need to take caution of. And just a quick note to you. Yes, Robin's asked, are the recordings of the cafe webinars available after the program? Yes, they are. They're available on your favorite streaming service, so as a podcast to listen to and reflect on. And they'll also be made available on our website with a blog that I write every Friday as well. So yeah, feel free to check in and reflect again. All right, so we're going to look after ourselves. We're going to be coaching people around their vulnerabilities potentially. There's a lot of power and a lot of great opportunity to be setting our boundaries, to be focusing on ourselves and focusing on our employees as well, obviously. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was this remote and hybrid workplace. Like it's really there. All of the HR magazines are full of discussion around hybrid. Is it going to be 2 days, 3 days? Is it going to be 80%? Is it going to be 60%? Are we going to be saying you must get back to work, just deal with it? There was one colleague I was talking to who just had to make the announcement, you're all back in the office. I don't care what it looks like, how it looks like, just get them back in the office. So there's directives coming down and all this kind of stuff going on. You notice, Paula, you found the research around from Gallup that said when people work in a hybrid manner, they may essentially struggle with feeling connected to the purpose of the organisation and its culture. They may not be clear about their expectations or the meaning of their work. So these are big trends I think we're going to start to see coming out of hybrid. And the other quote I have here from a partner at KPMG Australia, Nina, I should have checked how to pronounce her surname. I'm going to say it's Spicer, maybe, Workplace Relations Advisory from KPMG Australia. People are suffering from too much technology. So the hybrid workplace is creating too much technology. The work never stops. Employees feel that they're constantly on. This has been a big theme as well. There's currently a lot of noise in the system, constraining productivity and forcing people to work longer and to make up for it. So the hybrid with a lot of technology, a lot of meetings, the work never stops. Of course, that then leads into our trend number 2, doesn't it, with burnout?
Yeah, and also there are some people for whom the hybrid really works. And there are people who are really suited to working from home rather than working in the office. And there are some people for whom working from home does not work for them. And it's really hard to find this balance. And then you've got managers who are worried about, can I trust people working from home? Is the productivity the same? Are we going to be able to do what we need to do? And then there's the connection issue. So if you put in that managers are worried about is everybody going to be delivering this, what they need to deliver? Staff are worried about, I'm not connected to the organisation and I don't know how this works for me. And then it's still working itself out. So there's anxiousness around, well, will I be able to do 2 days of work at home because I've really liked it, it works for my family. So that there's a lot in that space. And then you add technology. And so people have got phones with their messages coming through on a regular basis that happens in the middle of the night and all sorts of things, because people are working at different times, which is great. We really want that, but we don't want it impacting people at the same time. So I think there will be a lot that organizations have to work through to look at, how do we make this work? Because we know that people, now that they've had it, there are lots of people who really want to keep it, but there's still a lot of work to go through around how do we make this really work for everybody.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I was laughing when you were talking about the technology, because my phone will ring, but my laptop will ring, my phone will ring, and my watch will ring. So there's a lot of buzzing and dinging and things going off. Of course, we can set our notifications, and that's the first thing I did. Is I went through my entire phone and worked out. Turned all my notifications off, basically. So I don't want to be notified in 50 different devices, but that's what happens in our environment. And Nathan's jumped in here again and said he loves the idea of boundaries, because the word no can be a one-word sentence. It doesn't need to be feared or interpreted as a four-letter word. So, no is often seen as a bad thing, but if we talk about boundaries and what that means and what's going to work, that's a different thing. And yeah, Lisa's jumped in here as well again. Thank you so much. And said hybrid really requires great and strong boundary setting. So working together about what it's going to look like. And I think that's where coaching. And so why are we talking about this on our coaching cafe? Because coaching obviously can help enormously here. I still love this quote from Albert Einstein, who said, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." So we can't move completely to all technology, but there's a lot we can do. The things that we can be focusing on from a coaching point of view is coaching through change. I've even coached people this year who said that they have to make an effort to get back into the workplace. So it's like, oh, it's an effort. I've got to put on clothes and makeup, or, put my shoes on, or, so coaching people around that change, the changes they have to make around remote and hybrid is going to be huge. I love this quote from Adam Chicktom, General Manager of Asana, who said that we're in an experimentation phase. And I love that idea from a coaching point of view, that we are experimenting. We're curious. We're trying to work out what the options are. How can we experiment with different ways of doing things? And I think if we take an experimental approach to remote and hybrid working this year in particular, that'll have a big impact on how we can move through this positively. Of course, coaching through the conflict. Paula, you talked about trust. So there's going to be potentially conflict coming up around, who's in, who's not in, that kind of thing. Getting the mindset right for performance conversations. We will be doing coaching cafes, how we can coach around performance conversations. There's going to have to be a real shift in our mindset around performance conversations. And of course, the other point that I put there is creating human connections. And there's quite a bit of research coming out at the moment around human-centered leadership. And it seems obvious, I know, to all the people listening on the line, but that real strong need to create human connections that we do through coaching, how can we enable that as well? So let's move on. We've got a few minutes to talk about trend number 4, and that is around talent retraction and attention. Anyone that's in HR, in learning and development, anyone that's working with employees right now, which is all of us, anyone that's coaching will know that this is a massive opportunity, but also a massive challenge. So there was a survey conducted there that you found, Paula, around workplace trends for 2023. A survey conducted with 1,300 employees. 78% of respondents reported a higher turnover rate in the previous 12 months. and 61% expect this to continue or get worse in the year to come. Paula, when you see those kind of statistics, what are you thinking?
It scares me greatly, but it also signifies to me that organisations have to do better. So I think through COVID, people really started thinking about what is best for me and my family, and what do I want to be doing moving forward. And organisations who aren't connecting with that and are not moving with it are going to lose people. And the flip side of that is that there's people who were amazing employees for organisations who lost their jobs through COVID. And and I'm going to use Qantas as an example in this one. Qantas lost the majority of their staff, and now they are facing a situation where they can't get them back, because they all went and looked at different things and found different things that they were interested in, or different ways to earn their income, and have said, no, I don't want to come back, because when you terminated my employment during this really difficult time, it really hurt. And so I'm not coming back to that. And so I think there's this whole shift that people want different, and they're going to go look for it. And so organizations are going to have to really look at, how do we find people? How do we keep people? What are we doing from a learning and development? What makes us different to another organisation so we can attract the right people? And then what are we doing to create a great organisation that they want to stay at?
Yes, absolutely. And Qantas is a great example. As early as yesterday, I was talking to a manager who said that they are having almost 100% turnover. So I can't even imagine. That's not just in the casual workforce either. That's in the full-time employees. So I can't even imagine what that would be, that the entire workforce has actually turned over in the past year. So obviously they've got lots of things that they need to work on. And I'm not making light of that situation by my chuckles, by the way. I'm deeply concerned, and they're deeply concerned, and that's what we're starting to work on. So 78% of people reported a higher turnover, and they expect it to continue. There's massive opportunity here for coaching. I do love this quote by the gentleman, head of HR at Unilever in Australia and New Zealand. And he said he wanted to empower people to embrace the gift of time. Flexibility is the new currency. Unilever have been testing this 4-day work week in New Zealand, and they're thinking about rolling out in Australia. And so it links back to our hybrid, it links back to burnout, it links back, all these trends I see are really interconnected actually. And that's Anish Singh, the head of HR at Unilever. So thinking about what does flexibility mean?
Yeah, I would also add in here, this is where also employee wellbeing and mental health programs in the organisation are going to be a key thing that we talk about for years to come. So It's not just about attracting them. The retention piece says, how do we look after our people? How do we support you to be the best that you can be? And it's not just going to be, we have an EAP program you still need one of those, by the way, don't take them off your list, but it's going further than just having an EAP program and looking at how do we make sure, how do we support our employees from a wellness perspective? So that's physical health and mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been having a lot of conversations amongst us here at Open Door Coaching, but also with our clients around psychological safety and what does that mean as well. So people have workplaces where they feel safe and wellbeing is a focus as well. So there's from a talent and attraction point of view, there's a lot of statistics around focusing on leadership and leadership development, keeping up the learning and development programs that enable people. And the thing that I've written here is that flexibility is aligned. So there's one thing to have flexibility as an individual, but how does that align to the team's needs and the organization's needs? So I like this idea that flexibility is a currency, but then as soon as I think about currency, I think about something that can be traded. And I'm a bit kind of worried about that. I would rather think about flexibility being aligned. And of course, all of the great coaches on the line and listening will know that creating alignment between individual teams and organizations is one of our great skills and opportunities as coaches, and great opportunity for conversations as well. Well, we're right on time. I left a blank here to say, well, what else? What are the other trends that you might see? So people can feel free to continue to reflect on that, and perhaps email us or hit us up on the chat. Communicate with us. Let's keep in line and let's keep communicating about what we're seeing, because the great opportunity with our coaching cafes is, as we're seeing a trend develop, as we're seeing an opportunity for coaching develop, we can come together as a community and talk about how can we respond as coaches, how can we respond as leaders to what we're actually seeing. And that's one of the wonderful things I think about our coaching cafes. We can come together and have those discussions and think about how we might approach things. So welcome back, as I said, everybody. We have Leader as Coach happening. We have Cert 4 in Workplace and Business Coaching happening. We have Mental Health First Aid happening. We've got some really great webinars planned for you this year. We have book club coming as well. So watch out for our announcements about book club. I can't wait to be discussing some of the books that people have written in amongst our alumni. And we'll come together to discuss those books as we go as well. So as I said, welcome back. It's wonderful to be back here. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to catching up with you at our next coaching cafe. Paula, thank you so much for your time and for your insights today as well.
Pleasure. Always love to be here.